The speaker of this NCOR talk is Giacomo Colle, PhD candidate at SUNY Buffalo in philosophy.
Thank you.
Please.
So I'm hoping to just be the bearer of good news with this presentation. These people all contributed to the work that I'm going to talk about. Although the one who made the slides yesterday was not, so any mistakes my fault. Let me see what. Yay, okay. So as many of you probably know, I started to write recently a dissertation on the topic of cybersecurity ontologies and from the perspective of national security. And when I started doing that, I started taking a look of what exists out there in terms of semantic technologies and cybersecurity. And the situation is kind of confusing, kind of wild. There are dozens of cybersecurity ontologies, most of which have not been updated in a while, most of which are dying projects, most of which have tried to become foundational ontologies in cybersecurity without being able to do that, given that I think there are at least 4 foundational ontologies of cybersecurity, which tells you none of them is, because otherwise you would only need one. So this was the situation. One of the good things that I did found that has existed for a while is this thing called defend. Now, defend here presents itself as a knowledge graph of cybersecurity countermeasures. Nevertheless, hidden beyond this confusing way of presenting things, it's actually a national ontology. So if you're familiar with MITRE, they have developed some 10-15 years ago a thing called ATT&CK, which is a knowledge graph of cybersecurity red hat kind of offensive techniques that you will use to break into someone's system. That was very successful. MITRE has been leading authority in this field. And has worked really well if you read any basically textbook in the field, they mention ATT&CK. Now, a couple of years ago, this project started to represent the cybersecurity countermeasures, so the defensive techniques that you will use in the cybersecurity field. Again, from MITRE is an NSA project, I think, mostly backed by NSA. And if you look behind the this is because people were familiar with ATT&CK, and ATT&CK presented itself in this way, so they're presenting defend in the same way, and for some unknown reason, this resonates with cybersecurity practitioners, although it's very confusing to me. But behind this, there is an actual ontology. So defend it is a relatively new project, but has been growing. And has all of the good chances to become the leading project in the field. And Peter and I are 2 lead developers who have been working with it for this project. One of the nice things that they're really happy to share with the community is also some tooling that they're doing. One of the problems with having cybersecurity people adopt ontologies or use ontologies, or this common way of thinking that we use in the semantic technologies world is lowering the barrier of entry. Very often the type of technologies we offer seem to be cumbersome to the practitioners who kind of just want to get the work done. So one of the things that they are doing to lower the barrier of entry is provide some tooling like this to basically you draw pictures, as we have talked about this morning. That's way easier to do than creating ontologies. You draw pictures, you get turtle outputs. So they have had, I think, less than 2 months, more than 1,400 users. So that's really good. Now, the reason why we're talking about this today is that Defend was not developed out of the PFO CCO umbrella. Nevertheless, at a certain point in its development, the We got in touch with the developers, or they reached out to us. Can't remember exactly the history behind this. They were happy to see connections with the VFO and CCO world, partially because obviously of the memorandum and of the developments of CCO in the defense world. Which leads us to this mapping strategies that we talked about a little bit during this morning. So a couple of years ago, I started working with some other people in UB and outside of UB on this paper, mapping the provenance ontology to the basic formal ontology and CCO, where we developed a strategy to create semantic mappings that can be robust, that can be as automated as possible, and that can help you translate one graph encoded with one ontology into another graph encoded with the other. Which I'm happy to share should be forthcoming on scientific data recently. So that's another good news I wanted to share. So what we did now was we start from the FEN. On the other hand, we have our BFOs like CCO taxonomy and structure. So we started working on the mappings. And this is really recent because we've been working on this thing, mostly me, and then Finn, and then John supervising us, and then the developers from Mike and Peter. We've been working on this thing for some months now. But the FEN itself is very rapidly evolving. So this is very early stages of this mapping process. Nevertheless, the FEN had its first 1.0 release in the last days of 2024 or the first days of 2025. And the mappings between the FEN and Common Core are part of this first release. So that's I think very good news for all of us. The name is D3CO. We can talk about acronyms if you want, but it is what it is. So there are a series of meetings we're doing to ensure this matching process is going well. And as I've said, these mappings are taking the shape of this translation definition techniques that we have been already employing with Bravo to BFO/CCO paper. One other good thing that has happened while doing this is that the FEN itself, while developing, was receptive to lessons learned from Common Core and BFO development. So you can see, for example, that there is a distinction here between information and information bearer. So a lot of the things in the FEN are starting to look more like the things in CCO, and will hopefully look more and more like things in CCO. So there is a kind of positive feedback loop where we are they're giving suggestions to us, and I think in the future we should start thinking more about some of those suggestions that are kind of coming from the ground up that can be eventually implemented into our representations of things like networks and software and some sort in Common Core BFO space, as well as us giving them suggestions and helping them divide their hierarchies and develop their space. So this is where we're standing right now. The mappings are again really first in their first stages. Next steps are gonna be on mapping all of the relations. We have only started there. That's the most difficult part usually in this kind of projects, because that's where you kind of connect and tease out all of the logic that exists between the classes. So, happy to talk more with people and to receive help from other people on this. One other thing that I think we will have to put energies into is ambiguating exactly the terminology that is used by domain experts when they refer to things like software, cloud computing, and so on and so forth, trying to understand exactly when they mean the information bearing entity and when they mean information content entity in our terms. So creating a disambiguation between those terms, first of all, in FAN itself, and then eventually also with developments that we have in CCO and C3O, I think is gonna be one of the next important things that we can do. And then finally, I can't wait to actually start using all of this and to start taking data that I can actually start playing around. We can start actually playing around, test how the mappings are doing and how much of the CCO BFO semantics we can tease out of the existing FAN knowledge graphs and information tagged with the FAN that exists out there in the wild. That's it.
Questions? I would like to initiate a rant about acronyms. So you said, well, actually, we should distinguish, first of all, between names of ontologies and acronyms. And ideally, the acronyms should be made up of the first letter of each part of the name. So what is the name underlying D3CO?
The first letters of the FAN and the two letters from CCO. So it's not, I don't think it's an acronym. Oh, it was.
None of you can remember. So one of the ideas that was, I think, a basis for the success of the OVO family is that we insisted that ontologies should have easily recognizable names of the domains that they are ontologizing about. This brings a lot of benefits. First of all, outsiders who know nothing about MITRE or defense will know that there is here an ontology of cybersecurity, so part of the name. But also colleagues who are building competitor ontologies, if you own the good name, they will gradually drift towards you and drop their badly named D7362. So you gain benefits inside and also benefits from the outside. So you should tell your MITRE colleagues that they need to adopt this convention. Everyone else should adopt this convention. Being ontology was not actually perfectly named, but from the perspective of attracting users, it was 100% the right choice.
Are you suggesting that the FAN changes its name?
If it's an ontology, then it should have a good ontology name, but which I'm sure it is there, defensive cybersecurity or something.
Let me see.
The quicker you do this, the quicker you end up with good acronyms, because they get used up.
Yeah, part of the reason why I think, well, the thing is that in the space where they're working, attack is incredibly well known.
I know, so it's too late now
Yes,
for defend and attack,
but we're still in time for
Probably.
decom.
but it's not too late for what you're doing.
Yes.
It just makes me sick.
Okay, we'll think about it.
So very, it was just a cyber. But like, we stood in the look at the core cyber, so it's D3O.
Yeah,
And then C3O, we use for.
yeah, that's cyber ontology, that's a really good.
Because then we got used to Disney and everything.
I just told Peter that you said you hated today, but it's too late to change it, so continue on.
D3CO is not good for anything. Particularly not if it's meant to be the name. But even if it's meant just to be an acronym, it's not good. We're dealing with human beings when it comes to attracting customers, not with machines.
Any suggestions?
I've done too much things.
So there is a unified cyber ontology that is taken, there is a core defense.
Core defense.
Yeah. Well, we can.
Well, so what's wrong with the cyber ontology? Fine,
Us.
yes, so welcome him into your fold.
Yes.
Ontology maybe stating or outing myself. I don't like IDs. Can we just not use them?
So. I do think that a lot of things we're gonna have to work. Definitely that this space. Will end at big space. Coming out now, this is my. This is my. sense.
Yeah, the
servers. I mean, like cybersecurity realm, that can be, nothing wrong with that, but like, perhaps I have with IPs and like. That interesting, well, and like, what the utility of the class.